Okay, so I went and bought one of these little spot weld cutters here. Not sure if you're familiar with these or not, but basically they got some little teeth on here. It's like a hole saw. This centerpiece is spring loaded, so when you put pressure against it, it gives you a little feedback. And what it really does is just cuts the metal around the spot weld, hopefully leaving the spot weld attached to the base metal, but leaving the plate free to come loose. I've never used one of these before. I've always just used drill bits. The reports and reviews are 50-50 on these, honestly. Some people say they love them. Some people say they're not that great. What we run into is the weld metal is significantly harder than the surrounding metal. So if you go too fast, it's easy to chip a tooth. They can dull kind of quickly. And especially something like this where, I don't know if you can see, the spot weld actually comes out a little bit right here where they welded that. So what we're going to end up having is an interrupted cut on this. It's going to, as it's going around, leave the material and then enter back in. That's really, really hard on cutters. So the instructions say to drill a small pilot hole in the middle of there and center this point in the pilot hole and then just use smooth, even pressure to cut the spot weld free. So let's see if that works. Like I said, never used it before. Figured give it a shot. I got a lot of these spot welds to take out. Normally I would drill these through, and it's not too bad on this side because there'd be a hole through this flange. And I'd be able to, put a backer and just weld that up. But on the other side, I still could do it. It's in that flange, but getting in there with a backer while welding is a little more difficult. Plus, I just kind of wanted to try the tool out. So we'll give it a shot and see how it does. Where those spot weld tools really shine, from what I understand, is when you absolutely cannot get to the backside. An interior piece. If I had a spot weld in the middle here that I needed to get to, but did not want to drill all the way through to the material, and basically eliminate any chance I had to weld anything. So we're going to drill this little pilot hole here. It's not even a hole, it's just a divot, roughly the center of the spot weld. And that is just to get us a place for the point to sit so the bit doesn't walk around. That's really all it's for. Probably could use a center punch if you really wanted to, but everything I've read and instructions say to drill, so we're drilling. Okay, and low speed, and let's see what happens here. Actually, I think I'm going to reposition you guys because I think I'm in your way right here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to reposition just so maybe you can see a better view of this. Just walked right off. Let's see here. Yeah, it's just walking out of that center divot. It says to go slow, but it's almost seeming like you had to attack it a little quicker to get this channel here going to give the cutter somewhere to stay in. Probably if I drilled that hole a little deeper might have helped. Sure if I'm through yet or not. Seems to be doing a good job though. I think I might have made it through. I felt a little give like when you're drilling through sheet metal. So, all right, let's do a couple more center holes a little deeper on the other spot welds and see how that goes. Drill a few of these at once here. Tighten that chuck. Bit was slipping in there. drilling these about halfway through the material, I guess. There we go. Definitely a spot where the bit's not going to slip out. So I say, hey, that still is walking all over the place. Jeez. Look at that, just everywhere. I don't know, maybe I'll drill all the way through. I've heard some people say that they had better success with that. That way the center can't walk out at all. It'll just be sticking right through the other side, basically. Yeah, not all the way through, but a lot deeper. We'll try that and see. I just really like to leave a little metal so that when I go to weld that, I don't have a hole on the back side that I have to contend with. Okay. Well, that did seem to do considerably better. Okay, I think I felt that one come clean. Right through. Okay, grab a chisel and just give that a little bit of a knock just to see if we're through here. I'm seeing the metal separate. It's not fully getting through the spot welds, I don't think. But it does seem to have done something. Okay, that top piece definitely seems free. Metal seems to be lifting pretty well. Probably a couple spots like right here. This one I think has a little more weld right there. Yeah, it's definitely much more solid on that one. So I think there's still a little attaching there. Like I said, the welds have gone out to the side, so it's not just the spot weld cutting. There's a little bit on the edge here. But that does seem to be working. I'd call it okay. I think what I'll do is I'll continue on with that. in the welds on the other side. Then we'll go around the perimeter on the bottom, do the same, and see how well that works. So I'm going to just come back when I've done that, or if I find something interesting. All right, well, here we are after drilling all these with the spot weld bit. And honestly, I'd say there's probably a use case. And the use case is probably, like I said, you've got a hole, an area you can't get behind to back when you weld. Yes, you can circumferentially weld a hole between two pieces. It's not going to be a great weld. You can't get them tight. It's very difficult to deal with that. So in that scenario, it might be kind of nice. But personally, I think if you can get to both sides of the metal, you're probably a lot better off just drilling these out. By the time I drilled this hole in each of these, and then either switched drills or switched bits to put the spot weld cutter in, I could have just gone to the larger drill bit and been done. And I'm pretty positive the larger drill bit would have drilled through these spot welds faster than this spot weld cutter is going around here. So I'll give it a few more tries, but I'm not super hopeful. I'll put it in the toolbox for that special use case stuff and see how it comes out. Overall, it's okay, but I just don't like the way it works. One of the big things I noticed right off the bat is because it cuts like a hole saw, that the top and bottom, if you're not perfectly perpendicular to the metal, your hole's going to be at an angle, which means you could cut through here before you cut through here. And you know, when you go to pull this piece off, you're still going to have metal attached. Whereas a drill bit just punching right through, you're going to go through the whole thing. The one thing I do see possibly being a value is that even if you do have a little metal attached here from the spot weld, it's going to be very, very thin and likely will tear the spot weld before it'll tear the metal behind or the metal in front. If you recall earlier in the video, we have some tearing on the center. When I missed really drilling a spot weld out and went to take the piece out, it tore the basement metal out. It didn't matter over there because we had to replace that section anyway, but had that been good metal, it would have been an unnecessary repair. So I guess we'll go along and I'll give it a few more chances on here and see what I come up with to get this piece out. And maybe I'll try that spot weld cutter in a few more spots. But for now, I'm just kind of ho-hum on it. Okay, so what I've got here is an area with some spot welds that I was unable to find. And I'll show you why here. So normally you can see if there's a paint or a little disturbance, but this is so rusted that I couldn't find where any of the spot welds were in here. So I cut out all the spot welds that I could. And what I wanted to do is show you a little way that I can explore to find out where the center of those welds are. So I've got everything to that end of it already separated. What I'm going to do is come in with my chisel, and I'm going to start just chiseling in, okay? Sorry if that vibrates the camera, but I wanted you to have a close view. Let me arrange that a little better. Okay, so I'm chiseling in, and what that's doing is it's lifting this lip up, okay? I'm going to come over here, and you know you hit something solid when you get a solid sound. When you're moving metal, it's a dull sound. When you hit something, you know you're solid. So what I do is I then start circling around that spot. And what it does is now I've raised the lip everywhere I can raise the lip. And what it did is that now created a center. I know where the center of that spot weld is now. And there's one more, it feels like, right in this area. So I'm going to come over and do the same. Okay, dull. Okay, I'm getting really hard. I know I'm hitting metal in there. Yeah, very, very solid right there. So all I'm going to do is just keep driving this in until I see the center of that spot weld start to become like the center of a volcano, I guess. Best way to describe it. Okay, now I can see I've got a center right here and I've got a center right here. So now I was able to find where those spot welds were without having to chisel like crazy and destroy everything. So I just got into that in removing this piece and wanted to record it because I thought it was a pretty interesting one to see and show you guys a way to find where your spot welds might be if you have extensively rusted metal. Normally I could go from the underside and look from the bottom, but this piece right here is actually on a frame member underneath, so that spot weld isn't even visible. But I'm going to go and finish getting this piece out, and come back and show you what we did. I just wanted to stop and show you that piece. Great, thank you. Okay, so this video was supposed to turn into one about replacing the floorboards. However, this was significantly more difficult to remove than I thought. As you can see, spot welds every, I don't know, inch and a half, inch and a quarter along here, and some multiple spot welds in very tight areas. Many of these were so rusted and pitted and corroded that I couldn't see them. You know, normally you can see the raise or the divot where the spot weld took place. But on all these rust pits, all I was able to do was that chisel method I had shown over here. But unfortunately on the backside, I couldn't get the chisel into both directions to cause it to raise. So I had to just, you know, pry it incrementally until I could see about where it was sticking at. So in some areas I thought there was a spot weld, there wasn't. There was one here. This ended up just sticking side by side. So I just had to inch my way along until I found all the spot welds. Up through here, so you can see that's basically gone. So I kept drilling the spot welds here and it kept being more and more weld. I think what happened is possibly when they were putting this together that maybe these panels didn't join up well and they were putting a lot of pressure and a whole lot of small spot welds in there because that basically was one complete weld, but just spot welded. So the underside has a frame segment and there's a rail here and here. You can see there's a low side, and I created a low here while prying on things. Doesn't matter, we're replacing this, right? So, but there's a frame here that comes up to here and has a round, and then underneath there's another frame segment that goes this way, okay? So what really is going on here is this actually wasn't just spot welded to the body, to the sheet metal here. We have a sandwich. There's a heavy piece of material here. The frame member underneath is very heavy, much thicker than this, and with the sheet metal sandwiched in between. So what we almost really had was if you had plug welded through all three layers. So a significantly thicker amount of weld to get through, and with that thicker amount of weld, it created a larger diameter weld, which basically bled over into far areas. So needless to say, when they spot welded a whole bunch of these, it made one big weld that I had to just sequentially cut through. And you know, I finally got there. So what I really would have been nice to do is if this were just floorboard, I would have just cut this out with this piece and lifted the whole thing out. Just cut these spot welds and taken the whole thing out. Well, I couldn't really get behind here to cut, you know, this section. And with this having frame members underneath, I could have gone along with like a zip wheel and just went through this top piece of sheet metal, but I still wouldn't have been able to remove back here. And I'm hoping that some of this is good that I can weld onto and don't have to redo the whole lip. We'll find out. But I just couldn't get in there to lift this piece off. So it was just sequential piece by piece by piece. This is hours of work. I didn't put this all on film because it was just ridiculous sequential garbage of me searching for and drilling out spot welds. At one point, it was so affixed into here that I thought possibly this cup inside here is spot welded. I could see those on the top. And I thought possibly this was a part of the lower support, part of this frame, and maybe this was spot welded to the frame as well. So I started taking these spot welds out to see if maybe that would, you know, release this piece. And unfortunately, it wasn't that. It was just the increased creeping weld in here. On average, I'd say these spot welds are probably 3/8, if not a little bit more across. They were significantly large spot welds, but I got it out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. I haven't even taken this off yet. I just got it loose, went and grabbed the camera to come back and show you what we've got here. So let me get this here. Here's the underside of that cup that is spot welded on. And here's our spot welds that we drilled out, and some that I missed and sheared off with the chisel or whatever may be. Okay. This side actually came out really well. The top side here, those were pretty easy because I could see those spot welds. And one of them even popped off. The spot weld wasn't even really there. It just kind of stuck to this piece only. But this piece came out. We got a little bit of abuse here on the edge from bending all this. We'll just hammer that straight. And with how thin this is, I don't know if you can see, it's gotten very thin there. I'll probably cut a lot of this off. Had I known it was that bad, I might have just cut this off in the beginning and just put a new piece in. That honestly probably would have been a million times easier. Since I'm getting rid of the floorboard anyway, I might do that on the other side. Basically take a zip wheel or something, or the plasma cutter or whatever, and just cut this curve all the way across both sides, drill out the spot welds, and just lift the whole thing out. I'll still have to figure out how I would cut the backside, but I haven't dealt with that yet. Maybe I can get it from underneath. There's, again, frame right here. I don't think I can. But if there's a way to make this faster, I don't want to spend another 5 hours trying to get the other one out. And it's not like it's 5 hours worth of work, but it's drill a spot weld, get it all done, pry, find out where the next spot weld is, drill that one. So it's just repetitive. All right, so now you can see there's a whole bunch of garbage under here. This is why this all rusts. All this crap just builds up underneath and inside these holes. You know, everything just sits in there. And this is what holds moisture, and that's what rots everything out. So we'll go ahead and get this done and find out what we got in here for drains. And if there isn't a drain, we'll put one. But one of the reasons these floorboards rusted so bad as well is this trough right here. See, that there's a reinforcing ridge. Great, that's fine. But that's where water is going to sit. It's just going to sit there forever. And the battery box was on that side, so highly corrosive, sitting in all this stuff. But we finally got this out. So what's going to be even, we'll call it extra nice, is I'm betting that I'm going to find spot welds where this sheet metal is through welded through these spot welds into that frame member below. Some of them I just started drilling through using a step bit, and that worked really well. It does, of course, go, you know, right straight through, but it did work well. So I'm going to get the other one of these off from the other side. I'm not going to record that unless something unique or interesting comes up, but we'll get that off. Then we'll be able to start taking sheet metal out, and I'm going to replace this in sections, doing a square kind of up to this radius here right at the base of it. And then we'll do the same on the other side, and we'll work the hump individually, because this is basically just a flat piece of sheet metal with a little bit of a curve in it here. And there's, excuse me, dust. There's a little bit of a drop down here, and that looks like it was designed to maybe help water flow to the outer edge, and there's some drain holes and other things. But, whew, excuse me, that dust is really getting to me. But that's it. So I thought I'd show you this piece finally free. Hours and hours of work, giant pain in the butt. So if you ever want to take one of these out, maybe we'll find a better way, but get ready to drill out a whole lot of spot welds. Okay, here we are on the other side. We still have to remove this brace. So what we've done is gone through and drilled the spot welds just like we did on the opposite side over there. And this time I went through and I took a roll-lock disc, an angle grinder, one of these, okay, and basically just ground the paint off. Let me see if you can catch this here. Okay, we can see there's a spot weld right there, there's a spot weld right there, a spot weld right there, spot weld right there, and basically I can see the paint in the divots of the spot welds. What really was catching me on the other side, and let me see if I can catch this here. Okay, so we have a spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld. This one spilled over, spot weld on a spot weld, a spot weld, a spot weld, a spot weld, another spot weld, a spot weld, a spot weld, a couple more spot welds, and a spot weld. Okay, so all of these had to be found and cut out on the other side, and the vast majority of them were rusty like this one is. Let me see if I can get there without the shadow. I can't get that without the shadow, but over here is just completely rusty, so you can't even really tell where these spot welds are because all the paint that would have filled them in is gone. It's rusty and corroded. So same sort of thing. I'll do the ones on this side that I can find, and you know, just again have to go through slowly and fixing this. This one is in very bad condition, you know, rusted right through. So we're probably gonna have to reconstruct some of this, and I might even debate how this goes back in and maybe make the whole thing out of something new. There's enough repair needed to this and to the other one, really from the removal process and in addition to the rust, that I might just form something new and, you know, put a whole new brace in here. I've even contemplated going so far as putting it in tube fashion, because I'm going to need a roll cage in here at some point anyway, just for safety, since there is literally no protection above this mark in the event of a rollover. So I might start the cage on here and not even do this piece. I'm just kind of, you know, bouncing ideas around in my head right now, because this does go straight through to the frame, you know, from here through the subframe piece of the cab and then bolts to the actual frame of the truck. This would be an excellent spot to go ahead and anchor a roll cage. So just wanted to get in there. I'm basically going to wrap this video up now. We're taking this piece out. I'm not going to go over that one again. It's just another long, boring process of finding and drilling out spot welds. If anything does come up that's interesting, I'll pop it in here, but I'm pretty sure this is just going to be another few hours just like this one was. All right, so thank you for joining me for this video. I really do appreciate it. When I come back, we're going to go into the sheet metal on the bottom, and we'll start in that phase. Great, thanks again.